Hello, I'm Danny Smith with the North Carolina Rural Water Association. We're at our training facility in Sanford, North Carolina, and we're going to be testing the double check valve assembly today. We'll be using the 845 5-valve kit to test it with, using only the high pressure hose. We'll also be using a compensating tee and a sight tube. The first thing we want to do is we want to notify our customer and let them know that we're going to be shutting off the water. Then we want to inspect our area and make sure everything's safe. Then we're going to bleed off our test cocks to make sure that we don't have any debris stuck in our test cocks. So we'll open number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1, close 1, close 2, close 3, and then close 4. All right. We want to attach our compensating tee to our number 2 test cock. Put our sight tube on test cock number 3. All right, and before we attach our gauge, we want to make sure that all of our valves are closed on our gauge. We're going to attach our high hose to the number 2 test cock. Going to open up the number 2 test cock, bleed the air off of it, fill up our sight tube. Now we're going to get our line pressure. We're at about 52 psi, so we're going to mark that on our sheet. Now we can cut off our number 2 shutoff valve. We're going to close our number 1 shutoff valve, and now we're testing the number 1 check valve to make sure that it's at least 1 psi in direction of flow. We want to hold our test kit level with the sight tube. Then we're going to open our number 3 test cock and bleed the water off of it. And we're at about 2.2. Should be 1 or greater, so we're good on the number 1 check valve. We can close off our test cocks, remove our sight tube, and move it down to test cock 4. Remove our compensating tee and high hose and move it to test cock 3. Open our number 1 shutoff valve back up. We're going to open test cock 3, bleed off the air using our high bleed. We're going to fill up our sight tube. And then we can close our number 1 shutoff valve. Now we're going to check the number 2 check valve to make sure that it's holding at least 1 psi in direction of flow. All right, so we're going to hold our kit up equal with the top of the sight tube, and then we're going to open that number 4 test cock and bleed the water off. And again, it should be greater than 1 psi. And we're at about 2 psi there, so we're good on the number 2 check valve. Let's close these off. All right, we want to mark, had 2.2 on our number 1 and that held tight, and we had 2.0 on our number 2 and it held tight. Because both of them held tight and above 1 psi, we can also say that number 1 and number 2 shutoff valve are holding tight. Now we want to remove all of our equipment. Open our number 1 shutoff valve, and then slowly open our number 2 shutoff valve to restore water to the customer. And we've successfully completed the test on the double check.